This is 13 WMAZ Eyewitness News at 10.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Portia Lake.
And I'm Frank Malloy. Continued conflicts in various parts of the world. We start tonight with the clash between forces in Israel and Gaza.
Defense forces in Israel launched a ground operation earlier today. This comes while talks continue for a ceasefire in the region. A spokesman for Hamas says the operation is a dangerous step and could have unknown consequences. He also said, quote, Israel will pay a heavy price for it. Bombings between Israel and people in Gaza are in their 10th day. The most recent raids began when 3 kidnapped Jewish teens were found dead. A Palestinian envoy to the United Nations hopes negotiations might produce a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. He said Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas met with leaders from Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Egypt, and many others, and said U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is on his way to Egypt.
We turn our attention now to the latest in the deadly crash over Ukraine today. According to Ukraine's ambassador to the UN, the flight would not have crashed if Russia had not provided pro-Russian separatists with a missile system that can hit planes. He says Russia bears the responsibility for today's crash, as well as the separatists. He says intercepted phone calls show that the separatists thought the plane was a military aircraft, but those calls have not been verified. He says the separatists went to the site, realized it was a civilian plane, and were saying that it should not have been flying over eastern Ukraine. The ambassador says it was obvious to people on the ground that all passengers on board were dead. Flights are being diverted around eastern Ukraine because of the crash, as tensions between Ukraine and Russia continue to intensify. They've been ongoing now, and it's been an ongoing power struggle since the former president of Ukraine was forced out of office in February. The United States and other countries have said the plane was shot down. Prime Minister says he will wait for a full investigation before he agrees.
The Ukrainian authorities believe that the plane was shot down. At this stage, however, Malaysia is unable to verify the cause of this tragedy. But we must, and we will, find out precisely what happened to this flight.
Vladimir Putin, the leader of Russia, posted a statement on the Kremlin website expressing his condolences for the presumed 298 people dead on the flight. According to the Australian Foreign Affairs Minister, several people on board were heading to an international AIDS conference in Australia. After its stop in Kuala Lumpur, it was scheduled to continue on to Perth, a city in Western Australia. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon responded and talked about today's incident.
With respect to the Malaysia Airlines disaster today in Ukraine, I'm closely monitoring the reports along with the International Civil Aviation Organization or United Nations agency. There is a clear need a full and transparent international investigation. For the moment, I offer my deep condolences to the families and loved ones.
Vice President Joe Biden says the U.S. should be careful not to jump to conclusions about what happened today while providing condolences to family members of the victims.
And I know you join me in sharing our thoughts and prayers with the families of all the passengers wherever they call home. And it's important we get to the bottom of this sooner or later because of the possible repercussions that can flow from this beyond the tragic loss of life.
There have been reports 23 Americans were on board, but the U.S. State Department has not confirmed that figure. Well, the type of plane that crashed, a Boeing 777. It's actually considered one of the safest planes in the world. It was the first jetliner to be 100% digitally designed with 3D computer graphics. The program launched in October of 1990. United Airlines had the first flight with the plane in June of 1995. According to Boeing, it is larger than all other twin jets or the tri-jet airlines, but it is smaller than a 747. Today's crash was the 6th deadliest crash on record.
Immigration took center stage in Senate hearings on Capitol Hill today. Officials from the state and Justice Departments answered questions before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee of importance. Questions about the president's request for $3.7 billion in emergency funding to address the problems at our nation's border. And according to Senator Jeff Flake, this would only put a Band-Aid on the problem.
The real goal is to stem the tide of unaccompanied minors. This is a crisis. It's a humanitarian crisis. And we've got to do something. Our concern, I can tell you mine and many of my colleagues' concern about the president's request is it seems to be geared at maintenance of a problem rather than fixing the problem and actually changing the incentives that go into it.
U.S. authorities believe 60,000 to 80,000 unaccompanied children will cross the border this year. One way they might be arriving is by train. And as you'll see in this next video, they are riding on top of the cars with plans to enter the United States. As Jason Carroll tells us, Customs and Border Patrol officials have taken special actions to discourage the migrants from making that journey.
The roar of a train mixed with the melody of the marimba, a musical combination creating a song called La Bestia, translation, the beast. Also called the train of death, which immigrants take from Central America, risking robbery or murder to get to the United States border. La Bestia is on radio station rotation in countries such as Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala.
Inmigrante de todas partes.
Eddie Gans did the vocals.
I appreciate the song.
That's basically the big thing, right?
Carlo Nicolau composed the music.
This is a very important message. It is very dangerous to cross the border.
Neither the composer nor the singer created the message. U.S. Customs and Border Protection did. Though La Bestia has no disclaimer saying who's behind it, Border Protection saying they wanted it unbranded. It's actually part of a U.S. government campaign to deter dangerous border crossing.
A good friend of mine just called me and said, Eddie, big propaganda, blah, blah, blah. I said, yeah, but there's a great message behind it.
I don't think it's propaganda. What we're doing here, it's sending a humanitarian message.
Border Protection worked with an advertising agency to create the lyrics, and it's not the first time. Back in 2004, CBP launched a campaign in Mexico called No Más Cruces, no more crossings or crosses. Several songs released with the same theme as La Bestia. Border Protection credits the songs with helping to reduce crossing deaths from 492 in 2005 to 390 in 2008.
They think it's a pop song, and they're getting into the lyrics of it, and it's sinking in. What's wrong with that?
What's wrong? Some immigration groups say with so many people trying to escape violence in their home countries, what's not needed is propaganda disguised as pop music. They say what is needed is more transparency and a better immigration policy.
I think it's absolutely misleading when a song that has been produced by the U.S. government, if they don't actually spell out that they are the ones responsible for it.
We know that there were some risks involved, but at the same time, we wanted the message to be heard. We want the message to be effective.
It's music with a message, one still not powerful enough to stop many from coming.
The chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Democrat Robert Menendez, says it's not acceptable to change U.S. policy to process kids from Central America back to their home countries without court hearings. He says it would take due process away from those children arriving by the tens of thousands at our border.
Well, here we are, day 2 in nice weather. We've had low humidity now for 2 straight days. Let me show you what's going on for later on tonight. Upper 60s, so cool stuff continues, but not as cold as it was this morning, and neither one of them are cold. They're just definitely cooler than what you expect for July, and the humidity has been a whole lot lower than what we normally expect for July, too. There's the headline, humidity building back in tomorrow, much better rain chance coming back in for Saturday. A slight rain chance as we get on into tomorrow, but it's mainly going to be Saturday and Sunday. As we get on into the weekend, the chance continues to rise. There's Doppler Max HD, a whole lot of nothing going on, quiet for now. But the 7-day forecast comes up in a little bit, and we'll talk about a rain chance again that is going to be coming up. So this little kind of wonderland we went into with some drier air is coming to an end as we go on into tomorrow. Changing gears a little bit, some traffic information you'll want to know for tomorrow and this weekend. Parts of the International City will be affected by road repaving over the next few days. Crews in Warner Robins plan to start repaving part of Russell Parkway. That's between Highway 247 and Moody Road. A news release says work will continue Saturday and Monday. The city warns the drivers should avoid that section of Russell Parkway until Tuesday if possible. During the rush hour, you may want to consider using Gate 5 at MLK Boulevard, which is open from 6 to 8 in the morning for inbound traffic and 6 to 8 in the evening for outbound traffic. Little traffic note for you.
Thank you, Ben. Good advice for those base commuters.
Now it's back to school time, and for many children, it's time to head to the doctor to get shots. Now, some parents are actually split on whether to vaccinate their kids, fearing possible side effects. Today, Georgia's First Lady Sandra Deal spoke in support of immunizations.
And we talked to pediatricians who say they're seeing more patients do just the opposite. Dr. Jason Smith says less than 1% of his patients aren't vaccinated. But more parents in recent years are asking whether shots are safe. He says a lot of parents get misinformation from the internet about the dangers of vaccines. He warns that choosing not to get kids immunized could have serious consequences.
Pertussis in my training and when I was in med school, I'd never seen a case of it. Now we see it all the time. So in the last year, I think we've had 3 cases just in my practice, and I think more in our whole office. And that was unheard of 10, 12, 15 years ago.
In addition to pertussis or whooping cough, Smith says other illnesses like measles, mumps, even polio could become common again if children are not vaccinated. Dr. Seth Bush agrees. He doesn't treat children who haven't been vaccinated.
The American Academy of Pediatrics, the Center of Disease Control, they take vaccines and safety very seriously, and they've done huge 500,000 patient, double-blind, placebo-controlled studies and have found no link to vaccines and autism.
Most people in Georgia still choose to immunize their children. According to the Centers for Disease Control, about 97% of Georgia kindergartners are vaccinated.
When Eyewitness News at 10 continues, we take a look at local news tonight as the search for a new lead continues in Bibb County.
Plus, a campaign pledge by a mayor might be coming to fruition in Ford Valley. Stay with us.